Next up, we had the tale of two teams. It was the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and Damian Priest taking on the undisputed tag team champions Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Now, I can buy that this match was built to be a Steel City street fight. Great, they're in Pittsburgh, and yes, there's been enough development, I think, in this storyline for the Judgment Day and Owens and Zayn to be engaged in a fight, in a real fight. So the street fight scenario was okay, but for me, there's a lot of work to be done to re-educate audiences about what that should mean, because they started off hot, but within the first few minutes, we had all the competitors going out and grabbing multiple props, multiples of them. So kendo sticks came out, lots of chairs came out, and it does get tiresome somewhat when they have these stipulations and you tend to see the same things. You know, I would prefer if you could go out there and use things, especially in a street fight scenario, that could conceivably be around the arena. So that doesn't include 8 very carefully taped together sticks. So it was a little big bugbear to get started. It was a hot start. The crowd were into it. And again, we've had the Judgment Day really on the rise, and the crowd invested in what they've been doing over the last few weeks on Raw and occasionally on SmackDown. The flip side of that is that Zayn and Owens, perhaps not their own fault, but have cooled off since WrestleMania, and they're running to that WrestleMania main event on night one. And seeing them, they did bring the crowd back up here, so that was fantastic to see. Obviously, they've been hampered a little bit by injury, and other things that have affected them. I feel like that's why they've cooled off as champions. I was thinking before this match got started that it probably was time for a change, but the crowd was absolutely still behind Owens and Zayn 100% here, which was really interesting and great to see. I think one of the issues that they had during the reign was that I don't really recall them defending the championships all that much, and at least not in high-profile defenses. So when they were healthy, the night after WrestleMania, there was non-title matches against the Street Profits. They would have had matches in there with the Alpha Academy, but other than that, I can't really recall any high-profile defenses. And it has been a long reign for it not to mean all that much. And I tell you what, another point here is that new straps wouldn't hurt either. Those 4 belts, the blue and red tag belts, are their life expectancy has gone on those things. They're past the due date. So some new straps would be absolutely fantastic. Eventually, these guys took the fight to the crowd, which I liked. It serves the premise of the street fight. But they couldn't, we don't want the predictability. That's what I'm trying to harp on throughout this whole match. They did the same spot that we see in every street fight at the moment, where they fill the ring with chairs, and we've seen it. Okay, it's got absolutely no risk factor there because we've seen it 100 times. Again, I don't want to take away from the performance that they actually put in. They worked really, really hard, and as I said, spilling out into the crowd did give it a little bit of an authenticity, but it was hampered at different moments by awkward spots. For example, once they were in the crowd, there was a long pause from the Judgment Day, and it was essentially for a costume change. It was so that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens could put on the Pittsburgh hockey jersey, and throughout that somewhere, Owen had big colour, which was unexplained, so it looked like a unintentional cut there that had opened up. And what was really interesting about it actually was that they didn't stop the match, as they have been doing, and trying to tend to it straight away. They've been really on top of that. We've seen more colour in recent years, but they have been absolutely on top of it during matches, even to the point where they've had to stop for long periods of time. So Owens was left to bleed here, and not only that, but he actually bled in the crowd, which is one of the things that you would think was an absolute no-no. So within the ringside area, highly sanitized, highly monitored. Out in the people, if you've got an open wound, I feel like it'd be one of the reasons to actually stop it. So I thought that was really interesting. Whether they just didn't have an opportunity or the ref saw it too late, getting blood spilt on an audience member, I think, would set them at risk, I would have thought. And once they did make it back to ringside, they took a little bit of time to fix Owens up. And things really turned up in this match as it went on. Yes, it got a lot less paint by numbers as they got into the deeper waters of this match. One of the high spots, of course, was Kevin Owens going off the balcony and doing the swanton dive. And I tell you what, he looked to me to be very close to missing that dive from the balcony onto Dominic Mysterio, who had interfered on the Judgment Day's behalf. Visually spectacular. Again, the production work here was fantastic. Shot from underneath Owens as he dove over the cameraman and swanton through that table. If I'm being incredibly nitpicky here, the furniture obviously being pre-cut, all table spots throughout this match was an immaculate middle split of the tables. But again, let's not really fine-tooth comb everything here. It was a solid contest, and that dive was unbelievable. And I tell you what, Kevin Owens always puts his body on the line in these high-profile moments, and he absolutely splattered the concrete here. So fair props to him. We did see JD pop up here, and the powerbomb that Kevin Owens gave him, whether we call it a pop-up powerbomb, I think that's what they were going for, but Kevin Owens absolutely brutal to JD. The splat really made me jump out of my skin. It looked like JD's spine was going to split in half. And it ended up being a really, really fun match. It was the right result in the end. The Judgment Day come away with the win with a last gasp interference from Dominic Mysterio, clobbering Sami Zayn with the Money in the Bank briefcase. I think there's still a lot to be done here. There's a lot of life left in the Judgment Day storyline, and we've enjoyed it. It's been going on for well over a year now, and it's built. It really has built. So I was thinking at this point in my notes, is tonight the night that Priest cashes in? Because the visual of Rhea being at the ringside area as the women's champion, obviously now the Undisputed Tag Championships go to Finn Balor and Damian Priest, the North American Championship with Dominic Mysterio. They could have topped off the night there with Priest cashing in. When you look at the rest of this card, thinking that Rollins and Nakamura is going to be the match that closes the show, a little bit lackluster in the build-up there, which seemed to be the theme throughout Payback this year. Priest cashing in, I thought, would have been a pretty good idea. Obviously, like I've said, I love to hear from you guys. What did you think of this street fight? Are we starting to see these gimmicks and stipulations overused, used far too much? Or am I just being too nitpicky? Did we get a really interesting contest here? And also, I'd love to hear what you think of what's going to happen with the Judgment Day moving forward. Are we going to see that split that they've been teasing for a while? How much more life is left in the storyline of Damian Priest holding the Money in the Bank briefcase? And finally, where to with Owens and Zayn here? Are we again going to see the inevitable split of Owens and Zayn, or is there more to be told for this tag team?